let's talk about the topic at hand that caused the filibuster, which is that of killing Americans on U.S. soil who have not been charged or tried or convicted of any crime. There's a legal and a moral discussion to be had here, and we can kind of discuss our thoughts on both. And really, we have four scenarios, right? We have Americans and non-Americans, and then we have on U.S. soil and not on U.S. soil. And when you combine those two, we have essentially four scenarios. And I'm going to list them in the order that, broadly speaking, Louis, they are least controversial for most people we talk to. Not everybody, but generally, the least controversial is the killing of foreigners in foreign countries. Subsequent to that is the killing of foreigners within the U.S., then there's the killing of U.S. citizens while abroad in situations where you simply cannot bring them into the legal system that we have here. And then we have this most recent version, which is the killing of U.S. citizens within U.S. soil. Where do we stand on this? And I think a good place to start is it that different to say that I'm against the killing of U.S. citizens in the U.S., but I'm not against the killing of U.S. citizens if they are abroad for similar types of non-evidence that has not actually led to the charging of any crime at this point. Bro, how do you feel about all this, Louis? I mean, really, are you okay with some of this stuff? Do you think that there is this greater good argument that what if it is an imminent threat, then the president has to decide?
It's really hard for me to say how I feel about it in the long term in terms of using this overseas in foreign countries because I don't know what the long-term effect is. It could be really bad in terms of our relationships with other countries.
Right.
But who knows how it's helping in the long term in terms of preventing terrorist attacks.
And now domestic.
Right. Domestically, you know, I don't think they should be used lethally anywhere in this country.
So what is the argument that would have to be made, Natan? Or go ahead, yeah.
Because I don't think there's any argument for using them in this country other than for surveillance.
Okay.
Using them lethally shouldn't matter because you have the presence here in the U.S. to do whatever is necessary to apprehend anyone who might be in the country, presumably. And if you use a drone to kill them, that means you know where they are.
Well, that's the thing. Does a line really exist where if the crime is so imminent that it is a minute away, presumably right there you have a law enforcement situation and it's not a planned killing based off of a signature. It's a standard law enforcement situation. If you have a full day and you know where the person is, which you would need to know in order to drone them, does that not mean you have enough time to arrest them based on the suspicion, the evidence you have for the crime they are going to commit? Does this middle ground exist, Natan, where it would make sense to say we can't really get to them in time for an arrest, but it is an imminent threat, and the only solution is to drone them?
I think that, to use your example, it wouldn't be so much that we can't get an arrest, but we would be putting our own law enforcement officials or soldiers in so much potential harm that we don't want to do that. I think that we could come up with a hypothetical. Dave and I were talking off air yesterday about one possible one. It would be pretty detailed where we would actually agree that it might be justified. But I think the relevant part here isn't whether we can think of a hypothetical where this would be justified.
Should it be the
according to us.
policy?
No. I think the question here is whether there should be a separation of powers where it's not just the president that gets to decide. So if you have a court, a three-judge panel, like I was talking to Louis about, or another part of the government, not in the executive branch, to have to go ahead with this before the president actually presses the button to go through with it, I think that we could probably come to a consensus that even though this is very unlikely, if it does come to it, it wouldn't be just one person deciding it.
We should discuss, Louis, also, how does this apply to a cybercrime type of scenario? For example, if we had if we had reliable intelligence that there was an individual who was going to shut the power off for 2/3 of the country, 200 million people, we know that will lead to many deaths. We know it will lead to deaths via crimes being committed, starvation, not being able to get medical care. It's going to be a big deal. 2/3 of the country losing electricity. Does it make sense to drone that person? In that particular case where it is, they're in a building, listen, we can't even find them in the building. We're going to drone the building. There may be some innocent civilians who die, but 200 million people without power, possibly for a month, 2 months. What about that? Does this go beyond just the traditional violent threats?
Well, that's a pretty crazy hypothetical. I mean, I guess my argument would be that it shouldn't have to come to that. I think we should be able to respond quickly enough where that situation should never happen.
Okay, we're going to continue talking about this, and we'll have plenty more.